Welcome everyone to this edition of the Fintech Whiteboard. And this week's episode is about conversions. And so I want to talk about some things you should know before you do a conversion. So it's stuff you should know before you agree to a conversion. So the first thing is, what kind of conversion am I talking about? Because there are lots of different kinds. So let's talk about that. So the kinds of conversions that I'm always thinking of are first, the ones that I think are the most impactful. So if we go here and we'll put in types of conversion. So the types I always think of are the core, right? So the core is kind of your main database. So, this is in credit union land, this could be Scimitar, it could be DNA, it could be a lot of different products. The next one I always think of is your home banking, represented by my crude browser here. Home banking, mobile, your digital products, things like that. And sometimes it can even include your bill pay product, right? So, if you've got a bill pay system, and then other ones I think about are credit cards. And those are, I don't think as difficult as conversions as some of the other ones, but certainly something to consider. So these are the four major types of conversions that I think about when I talk about conversions for people. So let's just go into it. Let's start off with stuff you should know. So the first thing that you should know before you start a conversion is, no matter what, you are going to lose 6 to 9 months of productivity, depending on which one of these you choose. What that means is that people who have day jobs that were working on other things are going to be focused on this conversion. And so that's important to understand, because you have to factor this into the lifespan of what you're doing and whether or not it's worth it. So knowing that you're going to lose 6 to 9 months, even a year, if it's a core product or if it's a big enough change. The second thing you should know is that probably when you get this new system up, it's not going to have all these new things that you chose it for. As a matter of fact, most of the time, it's just going to be parity, which means that it will do all the same things the old system does. And that's difficult because you just put people through a big bunch of work, and it just does what the old one does. So you have to think about that. Now, let's talk about some good reasons to convert. So I talk to people all the time about why they should convert. And here are things that I think are good reasons. So first, let's write this down. Good reasons to convert, to go through this effort. If your vendor is bad at service, okay, so if service is just horrible, certainly that's a reason to convert. If this person is going out of business, okay, so if the vendor or the company has either abandoned the product or is going out of business, absolutely you should convert, without a doubt. If they are incompetent, and we'll talk about this in the next part of this, but if they are incompetent, then absolutely you should consider converting, meaning that they're not moving forward in the industry. If they have stopped supporting or have gone stagnant in terms of their support and what they're doing with the platform, then absolutely you should consider converting. If they have a lack of new features, or they're not open enough for you to add new features, and that is inhibiting your business, certainly you should convert. And finally, probably the biggest one that I hear a lot is cost. This is one that people talk about a lot when they're talking about converting, is cost. They say, yep, this is like one of our number one reasons. Now let's talk about some reasons why, some bad reasons to convert. Well, some of these are going to be similar. So reasons to convert that are bad. All right. And so these are things I hear from people as I'm floating around talking to people about this and as we do this side of work for people. The first one is missing features. All right. It just does not do X. And if it did X, that would be great. And I don't think anybody out there is converting over one feature, but even 4 or 5 might be a bit much. Another reason that I hear a lot is everyone else is converting to X. And so we feel like if we don't convert to X, that we are going to be missing out and we will be lacking in the market. Another reason I hear a lot is look and feel. It looks old to me. It's not, it doesn't look new enough. And there's a lot of things you can do about that. Another one I hear is, personality differences. Well, we really just don't get along with our our account executive. Another one is, well, their technology, doesn't fit with what we're doing. So their platform or their infrastructure or even the type of technology, whether it be Microsoft or Linux, it just doesn't hit. And then, funny enough, another bad reason to convert is cost. And you'll notice that cost here is in both lists. So let's talk about why that is. So why would we have cost in both the good and the bad? Well, cost in the digital space, particularly in the core or in credit cards or any of these solutions that require a large conversion, is not something that's easily quantifiable. And so the duplication here is because, are you sure? So this reason over here obviously is always it costs too much. Okay. Um, and then what happens is I find that an organization converts onto the new solution and they find that, yeah, it was a lot cheaper, but they need more FTE to operate it. And because there were some features in the old platform that allowed it to do this. And then I find that there are people who, they convert, on a good reason is they convert because they feel like that they are overpaying for the same exact feature or the same exact service, only to find out that they didn't do their homework and that really they were failing at vendor management. And so that's something that I find is rampant. And unfortunately, the problem with understanding that you are failing at vendor management is you only find this out after you've done 2x conversions and you realize, hey, maybe the problem isn't the vendor, maybe it's us. This is a tough thing to learn. And so when you're looking at a conversion, you need to make sure that you are not failing at vendor management. You can find me on LinkedIn if you just looked up John Best. If you want to talk to me on Twitter, it's at JB Fintech. Pretty simple. If you want to find me an email, it's jb at big-cu.com. And if you're an Instagram person, it's John Best Official. And I would love to hear from you.